Joining me for tonight's Big Picture Rumble are Gianno Caldwell, principal and founder of Caldwell Strategic Consulting and member of the Project 21 Black Leadership Network, TJ Helmstetter, director of media relations with the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, and Brian Pruitt, director of redstate.com. And thank you all for joining me tonight.
My pleasure.
Nice to have
you,
two
Thom.
new folks with us. Thank you. You guys heard my intro. Isn't this just common sense that, you know, if a state wants to get disaster money, that, you know, one of the major sources of disasters right now is weather being influenced by climate change?
I actually think this is government overreach at its best. To say that governors and state legislators, it's specifically where hurricanes occur, which is in the South, mostly Republican in the Gulf, have to agree that climate change is real. It's putting lives in a balance. You're talking about preparedness dollars, approximately $1 billion that FEMA allocates every year to have folks that wouldn't be able to rescue or be properly trained to rescue folks.
So, Gianna, you're saying that if a police department refuses to acknowledge the law of gravity, meaning, you know, gee, their cars might just float up into outer space. If they refuse to acknowledge the law of gravity, that they should still get funding for their police cars?
I think what you're talking about and what you're comparing it to is two different, totally unrelated things.
It's not the strongest analogy.
It's not, no, it isn't, and I'm glad that you
But climate change is as real as gravity.
Yeah, but climate change...
And if a governor like Rick Scott wants to lie about that to his constituents in exchange for big donations from the Koch brothers and other people in the fossil fuel industry, I got no sympathy for him. You know, Florida is the state that is the most vulnerable to climate change right now, and Rick Scott is telling his, you know, people in his government, you use the word climate change, you get fired. He fired a guy 2 days ago.
What's interesting is you may not have compassion for him, but you should have compassion for the millions of people that could be impacted by the fact that...
And it's his job to govern them. It's his job to say, yes,
it is
climate change is real.
I agree with Gianno here because lives are at stake, and that's why Rick Scott should admit that climate change is actually killing people. So it is absolutely reasonable that FEMA, which requires governors to create something called a disaster preparedness plan in exchange for federal dollars, require those same governors to prepare for climate change. Otherwise, lives are absolutely at stake.
Brian?
I think playing politics with disaster preparedness is a nightmare. The Republicans learned that the hard way with Governor Bush and Katrina putting a political appointee in as director of FEMA. Hope it doesn't take another Katrina for the Democrats to learn that lesson. In the end, for me, this is all about Washington, D.C. and people writing words on paper, basically. I think very little is going to change on the ground.
I agree. I think Rick Scott playing politics
That's right.
is a horrible, horrible thing. He is lying to the American people and to the citizens of Florida on behalf of the fossil fuel industry and Koch Industries.
The bureaucrats in Washington are the
that
ones
is not
that
only
play
playing politics. That's felony playing politics. That's malpractice.
What I don't understand is if you can admit that he's playing politics, why can't you admit that the administration is also playing politics?
Because they're not.
They are. Lives are in the balance.
What political advantage does the administration get?
Because they get to embarrass governors who refuse to capitulate to the idea
those
that
governors are embarrassing themselves.
refuse to capitulate to that idea.
Almost by definition,
now they have to.
If you're playing politics with something, you're doing it to achieve political gain or to help a faction, one of the groups that supports you or something like that.
And in this case, you would be doing both.
Who is the faction that this administration is supporting by saying, Rick Scott, you're not going to get federal disaster money for your climate-caused disasters if you don't prepare a plan for climate-caused disasters?
Those climate scientists, Thom.
Oh, it's those evil climate scientists, right, who are just trying to get more grant money. Because the billionaires like the Koch brothers who run Koch Industries and are polluting the planet and bringing us all down, they don't care about profits. They wouldn't do things to get more money.
The Koch brothers are actually employing a lot of people, so they are. Is that not true?
Sure.
And there's millions of direct and indirect jobs.
They're also employing a lot of conservative activists whose job it is to lie about climate change.
Okay.
So,
speaking of lying about climate change, Mitch McConnell is urging states to disrespect the Obama administration's new rules on reducing emissions from coal-fired power plants. McConnell sent letters to all U.S. I should call him a turtle. It's easier to remember. McConnell sent letters to all U.S. governors laying out how states can legally ignore the president's new rules and help stop what he calls the war on coal. McConnell is also getting legal help from Lawrence Tribe, a constitutional law scholar at Harvard, who also happens to have written a legal brief railing against a climate rule for Peabody Energy, McConnell's fourth largest donor. So, and in fact, of the 5 top recipients of big oil campaign cash, 2013, 2014, Mitch McConnell was number 5. And last year, Republicans got $26 million in campaign donations from big oil, and that's not counting the hundreds of millions of dollars that was spent through.
Well,
super
Tom,
PACs.
these Republicans, they love writing letters to people telling them to ignore President Obama, don't they?
I know this is the second one. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, first it's
Yeah.
like, you know, to Iran, and now it's to, he wrote a letter to every single governor saying ignore the president.
Well, you mentioned something that was very important. You said he was number 5 on that list in terms of receiving donations, but he also represents a coal state of Kentucky.
Sure.
So he should be getting money if he's doing a great job representing his constituents. There's a lot of jobs.
So you think that the
in that
businesses
state.
in a state are the constituents of a senator?
Businesses are not people. However, they employ people.
Right.
I'm a business owner. I employ
Me too.
people. Right.
Yeah,
You
me
are
too.
as well. So you know that those folks rely on whatever industry in which we work in to do well so they can continue to have a source of stability.
Right.
So in that situation, I agree with the president's former mentor who said that the EPA was absolutely overreaching with the regulation. They have they don't have the legal ability, at least per him, to say that states must change their source of energy. And in doing that, I agree that there should be a change of this regulation immediately. It should be halted.
So you don't care that this form of energy is causing cancers?
As most people know, you know, red state's not the biggest fan of Majority Leader McConnell, but we're happy that he's doing this. It's showing leadership. It's reaching out. We think it's amazing that, you know, he's basically pulling another Tom Cotton. We don't have a problem with that. It's
another,
important.
don't pay attention to that black man in the White House. We're just going to disrespect him
not at
until
all
the
what they're
end of
saying.
his...
That's not what they're...
Well, that's
at
what
all
they got
saying.
together in
What-
2009, January
they are
20th, 2009 at the Caucus Room Restaurant, and committed
The
to each
only
other
thing they're
to
saying-
give this man no legacy at all.
The only thing they're saying is that the Congress has a role to play. The president doesn't believe that Congress has a
already
role to
played
play.
its role. They created the Environmental Protection Agency.
And the
That
Obama
was their role.
administration and the Obama administration is completely overreaching in their thinking they have
Mitch
almost,
McConnell is overreaching.
thinking
Where
they
does
have
it say
almost
that the job of
unchecked
Congress is to
regulatory
micromanage the relationship between the states and the executive branch? Where does it say that? It's not in the Constitution, I guarantee you.
Well, they're separate branches of government, and just like a congressman from the state of Illinois can reach out to a governor in the state of Mississippi to say, hey, this is what I suggest you do because I'm in this particular area. I'm a federal representative. That's some advice that they can take. It's not overreach to say, hey, governors, this is what I think would be a good blueprint in terms
That's not what
of...
he's saying. He's saying, here's how you can ignore our president, just like we've been doing for 6 years.
Well, I mean, one can form that opinion, but if I tell people that you're doing something wrong and others happen to agree with me, I'm not saying you should ignore the role in which you have. I'm not saying that at all. So I think in that instance, you would be twisting words.
I think if Mitch McConnell had any integrity, instead of sending a lawyer letter to the 50 governors, he would hold a press conference and say, here's how you can ignore the president. You know, here's how you can disrespect the president. This is what we're all
The
about.
country supports what President Obama has done with the EPA. Similar to FEMA, which we were just talking about, the EPA is performing at much greater levels than it was under the previous administration, and the American public supports it. And over the past few months, since Obama has come out for some of these big, bold ideas like reducing carbon emissions, his poll numbers have gone up since November increasingly.
Yeah, and this, let's not forget, it was Richard Nixon who got more popular when he signed EPA legislation.
The one last thing you need to remember is that Mitch McConnell is trying to ensure that we have low energy prices. The president's policies are just going to drive energy prices higher.
I don't think Mitch McConnell gives a rat's ass about energy
I think he
prices.
absolutely
I think
does.
he cares about the money he gets from the fossil fuel industry.
Look, I think...
This is the problem with American politics on both sides of the aisle.
But the fact is that climate change deniers, including Mitch McConnell, are not only denying science, they're also denying the American ability to create clean energy jobs, clean energy economy, and infrastructure jobs.
Oh, this could be an absolute renaissance like it is in Denmark or Germany or China right now. Is investing more than any country in the
If
world.
McConnell cared about job creation, then he'd be on board with the president's plan to reduce carbon emissions.
I believe so. Anyhow, more of tonight's Big Picture Rumble after the break. Brian.